80% of the people in Palestine who have died are civilians. So if they're going to great care, they're not doing a very good job. I also don't begin from the place of, because Alan always begins from placing Israel in a defensive position and saying, what would you do if these people were firing upon you? The problem with that logic is that begins with Palestinian resistance as opposed to Israeli occupation. If you begin from the place of Israeli occupation and you talk about Palestinian resistance to that, then suddenly the question should be, what would you do if you're Israel and you're an apartheid state and you're an occupying force? That, to me, is the more fundamental question here. And again, I'm not, and let me hold on, Alan, and hold on, Alan, and hold on, Alan, please.
On January 19th, Tzipi Livni went on Channel 10 News in Israel, and she boasted that we carried on like real hooligans in Gaza, and that's what I demanded, or so she said.
Sound like
the evidence is quite overwhelming.
Like Hamas website.
The evidence is quite overwhelming. Well, I'm sorry, but the Hamas website, if they had that quote, the quote comes from your Channel 10 News. It's from Foreign Minister Livni. No. Are you denying that she made those statements? No, okay. Are you denying that Foreign Minister Livni said we went wild in Gaza? Are you denying that Foreign Minister Livni said that we conducted ourselves with?
I don't know what she said.
Those statements are very much in context. What do you think real hooliganism means?
Not at the slanderous lies of Goldstone report. Goldstone report was a one-sided slanderous report.
Gentlemen, you're talking over each other.
We've created so many enemies. The only way they can strike back is we've imported the terrorists from those actions.
Wait a minute.
So if you question it, you're saying you're an anti-Semite.
No, that's not what you did. That's not what you said. You said they're controlling our foreign policy. They're controlling our domestic policy.
Yes, and I believe they are.
Hear me now.
I believe they control the Senate and the House Foreign Affairs Committee.
That's insane.
And they're controlling our foreign policy.
Congressman, that's conspiratorial nutjob stuff.
No,
listen,
it's nothing to do with conspiracy.
Are we supposed to be friends with Syria? Is Hamas a terrorist organization?
Do I get to actually speak now?
You get to answer the question. It's a simple yes or no question. Is Hamas?
You invited me on here.
Is Hamas?
You invited me on here as a guest.
I'm asking you a question. Is Hamas, whose charter calls for the destruction of Israel, is that a terrorist organization? That's a yes or no question.
Thank you for your question. And now I will provide an answer.
Finally.
It's very telling to me that, and it should be telling to your viewers as well, by the way, that the moment you have a Palestinian voice on your program who begins to explain the legitimate grievances of Palestinians on the ground,
not just organization. Answer.
Sir, let me
question.
Finish. Am I a guest on your program, or
you're a guest, but you don't get to filibuster?
There is, as I said earlier, there is also an extensive documentary record on what happened in Gaza. More than a dozen human rights reports came out. So let's look at the record as against Dr. Morris's fantasy. All the human rights organizations agreed. There is no evidence that Hamas engaged in human shielding in Gaza. You can look at Amnesty International, its report, 22 Days of Death and Destruction, and it goes very thoroughly through the record, and it concludes there is no evidence that Hamas engaged in human shielding. Number two, no, Mr. Morris, you really have to let me talk.
The world knows full well that Osama bin Laden was not charged, that the FBI said there was no credible evidence linking him to 9/11. So ultimately, we invaded an entire nation based on a lie with no due process of law. No due process at all.
Osama bin Laden was claiming credit from it.
I argue that 700,000 Arabs.
Don't change the subject, Mr. Dershowitz.
Changing the subject.
We're
I
talking
argue
about
that
phase 2,
700,000 Arabs.
Please don't play this game.
Obviously, the phrase 2 to 3,000 Arabs refers either to a sub-phase or is a type of graphical error.
This is why lawyers have a bad reputation. Because you're playing a game now. I've read the book twice. In fact, Mr. Dershowitz,
do I ever dispute that 700? Do I ever dispute that hundreds of thousands of people
I've read the book 6 times because I read Joan Peters 4 times. So if you add the 4 times to Joan
does she
Peters,
make this point?
with the
By the
2
way,
for
does
you, it's 6 times.
Does she make this point?
No.
Of course she doesn't make this point. Now, let's go to the other.
I'm going to interrupt for a second.
Theodor Herzl said he's going to make a mass conversion of all Jews to Orthodoxy would be the solution. Excuse me. He said the sound problem. Let me just finish.
First of all, if you look right now, there's first, second, and third class citizenship for Israelis versus Arab Israelis and Palestinian Israelis. Excuse me, Arab Israelis and Palestinians.
Please, Alan, let Mark respond.
Are we supposed to be friends with Saddam Hussein, Hezbollah, Hamas?
Hold it, Sean.
Well, you said we're not.
Sean,
we're only friends with Israel.
Ratings. I know you need ratings, but just hold it.
I have ratings.
I'm not saying we should be friends over there with anybody. I'm saying we should be objective. We have developed serious enemies from a one-sided policy. And yes, I believe Israel, through their lobby, has manifested total power of the Congress of the United States. Power. And my concern is the taxpayers and the citizens of the United States should control their government, not a foreign entity.
Dr. Morris says that Israel very effectively knocked out what he called Hamas's infrastructure. So let's see what that infrastructure consisted of. It consisted of direct attacks, intentional attacks on on Palestinian hospitals. It consisted of intentional Israeli attacks on 23 of 28.
The Hamas leadership hid in the basement of one of the hospitals.
Dr. Morris, you have to let me speak.
Thousands of rockets are fired in your neighborhood. And kids in your neighborhood are kidnapped. What are you going to do?
Sean, if the United States... Sir, I'm going to try to answer your question if you stop badgering me. Thank you. If the United States was invaded by a foreign military and besieged and surrounded, and the food that was coming into the United States was counted by the calories so that people would be put on a diet, as the Israelis claim. Bombs were being dropped. Sir, let me finish. Let me finish.
You're justifying
Let me finish, and then
you are making a rationalization for rockets and kidnapping and murder, and you expect you want to blame the victim.
My problem is indeed with those who believe they are better than everyone else. So whether that happens to be Nazis or American supremacists or Jewish supremacists or any other form of supremacists, you're interrupting me. I didn't interrupt you once. You're such a callous, chicken-hawk, cowardly man with no... I will easily debate you about the Holocaust. But nonetheless,
you will gladly blame the Jews for all the problems in the world, and you won't recognize the fact that this was a good thing that the United States...
Over at Google, Rabbi Joel Teitelbaum,
that rabbi would not have condoned killing Jews, which you do.
And his claims that we are paid by anybody, I wouldn't even
for murdering Jews.
I wouldn't have respect to answer his stupid.
If you think that we are going to have any progress in this situation by simply yelling at me, that's not really going to be helpful.
Nicely. Let me ask you, sir, a question at this point. Is Hamas a terrorist organization? Yes or no?
Let me ask you a question, sir.
No, you don't answer a question with a question. Is Hamas... What part of this can't you get through your thick head? Is Hamas a terrorist organization?
Excuse me?
Yes or no?
And I say, therefore, Chomsky is simply wrong when he says that there's no evidence. And he says, again, at another point, nobody today believes that any of the refugees were told to leave. And so I dispute that by quoting Morris himself.
You seem to have an obsession with Mr. Chomsky, but he's not here. I'm here. Let's look at the next sentence.
I thought I was going to be debating Chomsky today.
Let's look at the next sentence. Please, Mr. Dershowitz, this is serious. Israel attacked 23 of 28 of Gaza's cement factories. It attacked the only operative flour mill in Gaza. It attacked the chicken farms in Gaza. It sent in tanks to roll over the chickens, killed 100,000 chickens in Gaza. Now, I wonder, Mr. Morris, do you think those chicken farms were part of Hamas infrastructure? Do you think the flour mill was part of Hamas infrastructure? It depends if they were Hamas chickens. Israel dropped white phosphorus, when Israel dropped white phosphorus on Al-Wafa Hospital and on Al-Quds Hospital, were those hospitals on which Israel dropped white phosphorus, a substance that reaches 1,500 degrees? Was that Hamas infrastructure, Mr. Morris?
Just three young Israelis were murdered a week ago. By the way, we don't know who murdered them, and it is more than possible that it was an Israeli, false flag operation. Yes, your Mossad motto is by way of deception for you and the Mossad to lie is a kosher strategy.
Under the Quran and under the Bible, to kill one person is as bad as killing 100,000 or 1,000,000 persons.
I'm sorry,
but there will be an investigation in Israel, and they will get to the bottom of it.
But it has nothing to do with the Quran or the Bible. It's the way your favorite government, democratic Jewish democracy, interpret the Bible and called its Mossad mottos, decided to pick by way of deception. For you to lie, to kill even your own people, if it serves the tribal interest, this is exactly what you believe in.
What a disgusting man. Your job is to go send off more American sons and daughters to die for Israel. That's what you want. 22 American servicemen a day committing suicide. 22 American service members a day, at least, committing suicide because of wars for Israel. And you chicken hawk coward who's never served in the military. You're a chicken, cowardly man who talks rubbish.
Acknowledge that everything that Hamas is doing, everything that the Palestinian people are fighting for, is from a posture of resistance to occupation. The fact that he denies that occupation, the fact that he ignores the United Nations center of the...
They were doing this before
they gave me the last word.
All right,
began.
I'm going to have to end this,
They gave me the last word,
Sorry.
man.
No. Okay, I got to end this here.
Is Hamas a terrorist organization?
Is Hamas a terrorist organization?
Is Hamas a terrorist organization?
Is Hamas a terrorist organization?